Okay, so we are continuing with our shirim on the inner world of redemption. And in spite of the fact that we've taken a little bit of a break from it, it's what we've all been thinking about in terms of personal redemption, collective redemption, focusing on the urgency of redemption in every which way, and the need for rachamim rabim, and the need for there to be an unbridled compassion of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not in accordance with our behaviors, not in accordance with our deservedness, but rather from the place of matnas chinam, for the geula shlema that comes about by way of hesach hadas, specifically when a person stops focusing on the possibility of how or why, because sometimes it can feel too overwhelming, even though a person still has the absolute necessity of v'chakalu b'chol yom sheyavo. The hesach hadas element is that when I specifically stop trying to figure out how or why or in what way I will be deserving of redemption, when I forget about deservedness, it's only then that actual redemption can enter into our lives. Because if we're basing our experience of the desire towards collective redemption or the inner experience of inner redemption on an element of deservedness or a love that is dependent upon something, an ahava shetali b'davar, so then no matter how powerful of an experience it can be, no matter how real the positive light that comes from it might feel, at the end of the day, it is not essential because it is still dependent on my feeling that I am deserving of redemption. The most internal element of redemption is the fact that we can't be deserving of redemption. We're not deserving of anything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu berachamim rabim, berachamim ha'in sofim, the endless compassion that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has on us at every moment of existence, in giving us nishmas Yisrael, in enabling us to be a neshama beguf at this point in history, to be able to do mitzvos, to be able to think about Hashem, to be able to hope, to be able to daven, to be able to persevere. There's no amount of work that we can do to pay off the illumination that is hidden within one moment of being a yid. Within one moment of being a yid, there's not enough storehouses in all of reality to reveal the power of what that actually means in terms of the fabric of existence. And therefore, when we let go of the notion of being deserving, we also let go of the fear of being undeserving. If there's nothing that I could do to ever earn redemption in a transactional way, in some form of an ava shatali b'davar, where Mashiach's arrival is dependent upon something in particular, so then I'll never fully be deserving. I'll never feel comfortable with it. So when I could forget about the attempt to earn redemption, I can also forget about that inner anxiety of being undeserving of redemption. Because when a person feels undeserving of something, it means that they're still operating within the frequency or they're still operating within the economy of doing something for the sake of getting a response. And if I'm doing something for the sake of getting a response, the response being the arrival of Mashiach in a person's life, so then the response of Mashiach is dependent upon the action, which implies that there's a possibility if the action is not there, then the redemption is not there. And that's an ava shetali b'davar. That's a love that is dependent upon something. And a love that is dependent upon something, when that something falls apart, so does the love, God forbid. And while that is a fundamental way of relating to reality and our understanding of reality, nevertheless, there comes a time where a person has to be Masiach Das from that place, and they have to enter into the innermost chamber of their heart, the place of Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Ahava Shebedas, the love that is entrenched at the very central point of Das, the Ahava that is Mechaseh al Chol Psha'im, the love that covers over all things, and the recognition that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love for me, and the emergence of redemption, on the practical, on the general, on the internal, on the external, is not something that I can lose. I can't ruin it. I can't break that thing because it's not mine. It's going to come whether I am ready for it or not. It's going to arrive. Redemption of the soul, redemption of existence is going to arrive one way or the other. Bittul is going to come one way or the other. And once a person lets go of needing to be deserving of it, so then I can actually allow myself to be present in it. And so in that Hesach Hadas, in that forgetting about Mashiach for a second, and forgetting about the possibility of inner redemption, a person comes to that place of some element of hopelessness, which says, I can never be deserving of redemption. And in that yeyush about redemption, as Chazal say, that it's only in the yeyush about redemption that redemption will actually arrive. So in giving up on being deserving, we uncover the secret light of, even though we're undeserving, even though we're not thinking about Mashiach at every second, because it's too much to think about Mashiach, it's too much to think about it and not have it. Nevertheless, even though we're undeserving, even though we fall into the places that we fall, even though we are who we are on every level of existence, Nevertheless, the light of Mashiach, the light of redemption, is not something that is dependent upon human effort. It is something that is going to come, and it's going to come whether we are prepared or not. And when I let go of needing to be deserving of it, I open myself up to the possibility that redemption is here right now. If I'm operating in the framework of I'm not deserving of it, so I'll never feel that redemption can actually arrive. And even when redemption actually does arrive in my mind or in my heart, I question it to the degree that I can't even enjoy it because I can't be present in it because I feel undeserving of it. And that's so often, so much of our kfira and our denial of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our lives comes because we feel so undeserving that we're surprised why Hashem is giving us even any goodness. If I'm receiving anything good, it must be that Hashem doesn't see who I actually am. God forbid. And so from that mindset, we have to break on through to the other side and lichatchila ariber, go above all of the preventions and dive into that place of hanhagas hayichud, that Hashem is revealing redemption because Hashem is revealing redemption. And I will be meritorious of redemption because I have Nishmas Yisrael, and as a result of being Nishmas Yisrael, I am the vehicle and the purpose of redemption itself, both inner and outer. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with anything that I've done. It has nothing to do with any amount of things that I can do. It is fundamentally rooted in a place that is prior to my own efforts, and therefore it is also outside of the economy of being able to be erased. There can't be an erasure to this thing. It's not even written. It's engraved upon the very fabric of Nishmas Yisrael, that it's shaykh to Geula, whether I'm deserving or not. And in that hopelessness, a person allows themselves to experience calmness, to not question calmness, to not question my deservedness of calmness, but to realize that the calmness that emerges into my mind, the taste of Geula, is real because it's unconditional, because that's what it means to be Nishmas Yisrael at this state in history, at any stage in history. And so even when we're undeserving and we're not thinking about it and we feel overwhelmed or we don't have the hope towards it, nevertheless, it's specifically by way of interruption, by way of having previously been interrupted, that we can suddenly find ourselves in the light of Geula, of Bezos Yavo Ela Aaron. Bezos Yavo Ela Kodesh, that Aaron enters into the Kodesh through Zos, the Midah of Malchus, which is not something that is necessarily prepared for. It's not something that one can prepare for. And therefore, sometimes the greatest form of preparation, like we said by Shavuos, is coming to terms with the fact that I can't prepare. I'm unprepared for it, and specifically in my recognition of being unprepared for it, and that Hesach Hadas, and that Yeyush on a certain level of some earned or deserved redemption, I come to a place of the bottom dropping out, and I realize the light of the unconditional redemption. There was a video going around about the Lubavitch Rebbe, that there was a makubal of sorts who came to the Lubavitch Rebbe, and they were talking about the arrival of Mashiach. And the Lubavitch Rebbe looked at this person, as he often did, because the only question the Lubavitch Rebbe was asking was, when is Mashiach going to come? Ad Masai, how long will it be? How long will it be that a person has to wait for the coming of Mashiach? How long will it be so that a person has to wait for the redemption of their soul, of Karvel Nafshi Giyala? Rav Lachsheves Yemekabacha, a person sits so long in the dust of their experience, and the fear, and the concern, and the stuckness, and the pain of it all. And Rav Lachsheves Yemekabacha, Ad Masai. And that was what the Lubavitch Rebbe was always asking. And the Lubavitch Rebbe asks this Yid, when is Mashiach going to come? And this Yid quotes the most potent form of a Gemara in describing the arrival of Mashiach, as we're going to see, Hayom im bekolo tishma'u, today if you hearken to my voice, meaning to say, as we will see from Rabbi Nachman, right here, right now. Hayom im bekolo tishma'u, today if you listen to my voice. Which again, for the Lubavitch Rebbe wasn't enough. The Lubavitch Rebbe said back to him, Hayom im bekolo tishma'u, why are you making it conditional upon something? Hashem said redemption is going to arrive. So why bring me a raya that says that if you listen to my voice today, that I'm going to come? Let him come even if we don't listen to his voice. Let him come now, even if we're completely undeserving. Because when the structure of deservedness falls down, and we find ourselves to have been mindless rather than mindful, or forgetting rather than remembering, or not feeling instead of tapping in, it doesn't mean, oh my gosh, I have to start all of my work over again and nothing I did was real, but it means at that point the person has to engage in a different type of avodah, which is bezos yavo ala kodesh, that in this unpreparedness itself and the recognition that, oh, I forgot, and now I remember, in that place of memory, as the Baal Shem Tov says, that in and of itself is Geula. So as we forget sometimes of the urgency, and the possibility of the perpetual arrival of redemption into our own hearts and our own minds, which awakens the tefillah to the redemption, the collective redemption, which will come immediately now in accordance with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon, So we bring ourselves back into that Nahar HaYotzei Eden. We allow ourselves to suddenly find ourselves somehow, some way placed within the garden. Just as Adam Arishon found himself, just as Chava found themselves thrown to a certain degree. Suddenly, wow, I'm in the Gan Eden. I'm in Gan Eden. Bezos Yavu Ala Kodesh. I didn't know it. I don't know how. I don't know what I did, but I'm here. I'm here and I'm experiencing it. As the Piyazatzner Rebbe Hashem Yom Domo tells us, that, as we've said, redemption is a shift in consciousness. We're not talking about the collective redemption. The collective redemption, we said, is aligned in a congruent line, but on a separate framework and a separate wavelength of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon in reality. There's human experience and there's the divine expression that moves human experience every level. There's Hanhagas HaMishpat and Hanhagas HaYichud, the psychological experience and the spiritual historical experience. And what we encounter down here reflects what is going on above, and what is above is dependent to one degree or another upon what is taking place below. But nevertheless, the rules and the regulations in that Hanhagas HaYichud, in that Yichud Ilah, in that place where all that exists is the Neira Alila Al Bnei Adam, the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world and the way that he's going to run it, and only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows, and only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what we don't know. And in that place, Mashiach actually arrives. And at the point of Mashiach's arrival, it will come to be seen that both of those streams were in fact unified. The barrier still remains there. The Yichud Tata and the Yichud Ilah are still separate, but there's a separateness that gives birth to a greater level of unity, which is the Das of Shalom, which is Malach Haaretz De'as Hashem, which will take place when Mashiach actually arrives, and the pargod, the separation, the partition that separates the world of Atzilus, which is clarity of divine presence and infinitude, saturating all things, even that which appears to be separate, because we understand that the vessels of containment there, the Kalim in the world of Atzilus, somehow, some way, through the radical, impossible secret of faith, they, in spite of the fact that they're not God, they represent godliness in the sense that they do not separate from the infinite light of God itself. And therefore, in the Olam HaAtzilus, there's a radical revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's unity, and Altz's Git, everything is good there. Everything is always good. Everything is always good in the greatest imaginable way of goodness. That's the secret of the world of Atzilus, which is expressions of the world of Adam Kadmon. But the worlds of Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya, the worlds of separation, the worlds of concealment, that moichas tima'a, where I encounter my own experiences. So there's a separation, and here I feel on or off, connected or disconnected, afraid, confident, all of the different shifts and changes of human experience. And there's a partition that separates these two. And I'm remembering now, this is what we've been speaking about in the original shirim of this series, which is that there's the moichas tima'a, which is the concealed mind, which is oriented to the way that we function in day-to-day reality, of the splitness and the fear, etc. There's the Gilgalta, which is the inner form of reality, which is the Or Haganuz, that concealed light that saturates all of existence, revealing that we always have the capacity of tapping into the always already present infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bring about the redemption of the soul, which comes through the Hamshachas Hadas, of the knowledge that HaKadosh Baruch Hu exists in this moment as well. As Rabbi Nachman brings down in Torah Daled, Kisha Adam Yodea, when a person knows Shekol Me'orosav Him L'Tova So, that everything that a person encounters and witnesses and observes in this world, Him L'Tova So, is for their goodness and the ultimate goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zois Habchina, this aspect is Me'eno Elam Haba, the Me'eno Elam Haba. That brings me directly where? It brings me into the Vitebsker's room in Tveria, in the room of my mind, where Mashiach is here already. But what separates those two stages of the Gilgalta and the Moichstuma is the Kruma da Avira. The Kruma da Avira, the cranial column that separates between these two elements of the mind, is what we are in the process of refining over and over. The more we come to terms with the realization that above and below are inherently connected, the partition that seems to separate them begins to be a memutza ha-mechaber, a separation and a partition that in fact develops a deepening of a relationship. And through that awareness of the unified realms of the Yichud HaMishpat and our experience psychologically down here, which is reflected of the experience of the concealed mind, which is the Moichas Tima'a, which is the emergence of how we experience reality, and the illuminated light of the Galgalta, which is the light of Keser, which is the recognition that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always present and infinitely here, right now, no matter what, and everything is perpetually declaring the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu on every level. So the more we become aware that these two things are unified, and the Yichud Ilah and the Yichud Tata are unified, we're mezachich the Kruma da Avira, we're mezachich this partition. And once we remove that partition, even though the partition will always be there, we refine it, we come to a place of of tasting one's world in their days. And so it's suddenly when we encounter that partition that we're able to enter back in. What I want to talk about today not so long is if we talk so often about the ability for a person to tap in, for a person to close their eyes, still their mind, breathe deeply inwards, draw it down into the self, encounter the feeling on an emotional level, where the edge of the mind empties into the fullness of the heart, to really allow the warm water and the air, the cool water rather, and the air of Yishuv Hadas to penetrate our hearts and give us comfort in this world. Bring us into a place of menucha. Give us a taste of the Eitz Chaim, a place of emuna, a place of the emuna kozos, where a person is okay, where a person has stilled the anxiety, where a person has reached that place of saying, L'chatchila ariber, that no matter what the prevention in front of me is, no matter what the anxiety is, no matter what the issue is, I am going to move forward in Yishuv Hadas. That Hashem save me from Pizor HaNefesh, save me from a Nefesh Bahala, save me from being terrified and running away from what I feel is chasing me, and allow me to sturdily plant my feet on the ground. Hine makom imadi, there is a place with me, there's a place where you can stand. And in that place, to not be afraid, to realize that everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that all that existed, all that exists, and all that will exist is the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light, except it is revealed in different ways, in different stages. But in that moment where a person sees that everything is good, and that everything is okay, and everything is all right, even if a person doesn't feel that way, in that moment, the person is tasting geula. In that moment, the person is experiencing karve el nafshi giyala. In that moment, the person is in the Vitebsker's room. In that moment, it's a nahar hayotzimi eden. It's no longer olam haba that's going to arrive, but rather it's a nahar hayotzimi eden, which is always perpetually arriving, drip drop into the mind and into the heart and into the body itself. And in that place of olamecha tirah b'chayecha, of seeing one's world in their days, so we say that that is an actual experience of geula. That is an actual experience of karve al nafshi giyala, of yishuv hadas, of a yichud between the moichas tima and the golgalta. And so the question is, why is one time not enough? Why do we have to do this so often? Why do we have to perpetually try and re-enter into a place of calmness rather than maintaining a sustained state of being okay? Why is it that the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has oriented what I understand my framework to be, my personal understanding, my shi'urei delibi of the way that the neshama operates, is that the attempt to enter into a place of calmness is perpetually one of entering and leaving, ratza v'shol, ascending and descending. But while by the tzaddikim the descent is by choice, by me and anybody who identifies with the words that I'm saying, it's not by choice. Adrabah, that's the ikr, to be out, to feel that I'm falling out of it, to feel that I'm not mechubar to the yichud, to feel that I'm not living with the menuchas emes sha'atarot seba, with that fundamental calmness that does not deny a storm, God forbid, but rather is the only possible response to the storm. That tzaddik be'emunaso yichya, that derech amuna b'charti. Why is it that it's always a perpetual trying, maybe experiencing, and then a falling away, and trying, and then a falling away, instead of entering in and maintaining and learning how to be okay? Why didn't HaKadosh Baruch Hu give us the ability to be okay perpetually, to find that light of tainug, and to find that light of redemption, and to find that light of connectivity, and to find that light of being okay in a sustained way, in a prolonged way? Why is it the battle that the Ramchal and all of the tzaddikim discuss as the perpetual onslaught of all of existence, pushing me away from the das, from the Yishuv Hadas, and me needing to be Ezuhu Gibor HaKoivesh Es Yitzro, to overcome the natural tendencies of inattentiveness and mindlessness and anxiety and wandering mind and Hirhure Deliba, Histaklis De'ena, all of these inyanim? Why is that the way that things operate? Why can't it be once and once enough? And furthermore, if tasting redemption, if being okay, is built upon the fundamental awareness that the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only thing that exists at the core of all things, and that leis asar panamine, and that there's no place devoid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinitude, and there's no place devoid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light, and kula kaimet loy chashiva, and nothing exists other than the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in spite of the fact that everything that we feel exists continues to exist in a way of non-existence, etc., etc., etc. why is it, if I can't hold on to that das, if I can't live and allow that das to really work with me for the rest of my day, for the rest of my life, then what does that say about my access of that actual das? Maybe I'm just lying to myself. Perhaps the reason that it can't be a singular process that remains a state of inner redemption, and the fact that it's always a perpetual up and down, running and returning, inhaling and exhaling, maybe it's because it's not real when we tap into it the first time. Maybe in truth, true spiritual redemption and the reorientation of self through the hamshachas hamoichin, through drawing down the lights of spirituality and mindfulness into my mind. Perhaps I haven't done it properly, and that's the reason that it's not lasting. Perhaps I'm not really a mamin. Perhaps I don't really believe deeply enough in the secret of yichud and the raz d'meim nusa to allow myself to live with yishuv hadas properly. And so the inevitability of the process and the running and the returning and the perpetual fall and the inattention and the forgetting, etc., not only does it lend to the question of why do I have to work so hard at this, but it also goes to the aru ad hayesod ba, goes to the core of us even valuing our spiritual work. Perhaps I haven't done it at all. Perhaps I never did it. Perhaps I never accomplished it, and that's why it hasn't lasted. And what does that say about all the false starts and attempts to finding calmness that I experience? So what I want to do now is I want to read words from Rav Aaron Halevi Mistreselia. Rav Aaron Halevi, who Be'ezras Hashem we're going to be learning and teaching more of his Torah in the near future. But the Talmud Mufak of the Baal HaTanya wrote a sefer called Shari HaYichud Ve'emuna, which is his commentary on the Baal HaTanya Shar HaYichud, about the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the nature of Olam HaAtzilus and Chochmah and Bittul. And he also wrote a sefer called Shari Avoda, which is a commentary on the Baal HaTanya's Safran Shel Beinanim, which is the book of the fight between the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. Meaning it's really through Safran Shel Beinanim, through Bina, that a person comes to Shar Yichud Ve'emuna, which is Chachma. And Shari Avoda represents this process, this Nefesh Elokus versus the Nefesh Bahamis, this perpetual fight, and this perpetual up and down, never-ending need to be on point and to focus and to have attention and intentionality and kivun hadas in order to survive even for a moment in this world. That is the Safran Shel Beinanim. That is Shari Avoda. Shari Yichud Ve'emuna is the place where I've come to a place of menucha and I've come to a place of Yichud Ilah. And so you can't come to Shari Yichud Ve'emuna without Shari Avoda. You can't come to Shar HaYichud Ve'emuna of the Baal HaTanya without Safran Shel Beinanim. And so in the introduction to Shari Avoda, Rav Aaron Halevi has words that are mamish, a lamp of illumination and a flame upon the path that enables us to walk forward. Because had these words not been written, it would have been very difficult for us to believe that these words were anything other than the attempt to quell the anxious spirit of a person who can't get it right. Zot the Shari Avoda on Daf Yud Aleph in the Hakdama to Shari Avoda. V'hinei hagam shekasavnu la'el b'shem Adonenu Morenu v'Rabbeinu Nishmaso Eden. Just as we have written above, in the name of our master, the Baal HaTanya, Shaha Avoida hu levarer hagashas hayesh mitzad atzmo, that the avoida of a human being in this world is to clarify and work through the inner feelings of self in relation to one being an existent creature, self-consciousness, self-awareness, the process of exiting and entering into the place of redemption within the self, that we should be able to really do this on its own and in the right way, and that a person should really be able to do it without any externalization or inauthenticity or lo lishma or falsehood. Im kol zos, nevertheless, hayu kol devarav hakadoshim tamid lekariv halevavos ula'amis kol ha'espalus shakol echad ve'echad lefum shiura delay. Even though the Baal HaTanya wanted us to learn how to enter in, without the noise of the outside, without the hispa'alus, without the inauthenticity. Nevertheless, the words of the Baal HaTanya were always also speaking to the place of drawing the hearts closer and allowing them to come into contact with gradations of truth, which teaches us and reveals that any ounce of experience, any ounce of hispa'alus, any ounce of awakening, shekol echad ve'echad, in accordance to each and every person, lefum shira delay, in accordance to their own understanding, is valuable, even though it might not be authentic. Shabal yipol lev ha'adam alav, that a person should not have their heart fallen within them. They shouldn't become sad or despondent. Me'achar she'ikr ha'avoida v'hispa'alus yiyeh b'oifen lahasir hargashas atzmo. A person shouldn't become down over the fact that instead of actually experiencing menucha and chachma, I'm perpetually fighting against forgetting about myself and fighting against feeling myself, which I feel so intensely, and fighting against the self-interest and the self-driven desires, etc. And I haven't even gotten to the gate of the beginning. I'm still fighting against the thing that prevents me from entering to the gate, that place of hispalus, which is still just trying to get rid of myself. Just to ensure that I clarify that which is negative within me. To the degree that my avoda makes me feel and be fundamentally aware of that, so much of what I'm feeling and what I might identify as spiritual consciousness is really just self-interest and self-awareness and the love of self, which is the opposite of what the Balatanya and the Tzaddikim want from us. And perhaps that my love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a bechina of dimyon, and it's just an imagination, and it's not real. The Eina Muvurera is called Sarcha, and it's not clarified in the way that it should be clarified. The Eina Amitis, and it's not true, and it's not real. Asher Alkein Lo Yisbonin B'Shvil Espashtus Sheiyeh Nirga Sha'ava B'Leiv. Perhaps I shouldn't even try to do what I'm doing, because my attempt to get past self-interest is just a perpetual re-encounter with the perpetual renewal of my self-interest. And perhaps I shouldn't even try. Asher al kain, but it's for this very reason that the Balatanya hayam amis koil ha'avos. The Balatanya came and valued and made room for any form of awakening of love that an individual can have. This is Gant's Sefer Tanya, where the emotions, even though they're not felt, can be awoken in a way of cognitive manipulation, which is, from an emotional perspective, inauthentic, but nevertheless, moyach shalit ala lev, we can awaken emotions, because emotions are that strong, that even if they're not real, they have an impact. And so the Balatanya came to bring truth to each and every attempt that a person has. Ubal yichush ledimyon. And not to be bothered by what my imagination is saying, not to be bothered by the notion that maybe I'm just in a state of imagination. Because his entire holy book, the Tanya, is built on the pasuk. The matter is perpetually and fundamentally close to you, in your mouth and in your heart, in order so that you should be able to accomplish it. Meaning to say that the Balatanya is revealing that it's always available, no matter what a person feels about the authenticity of their work. That all of his words are there to bring us closer, even in our externalization and our attempt to bring about spiritual experience in inauthentic ways, even though we're not truly over the self yet. Nevertheless, the Balatanya wanted to be machshir, the hispalis shall call echad ve'echad b'choil ha'ofanim. Each and every person in accordance to their way, v'loy l'rachik, and not to push a person away, God forbid. Chas v'shalom, kasher pirush, moiri v'rabi nishmasa eden ha'pasuk. As my Rebbe, the Balatanya, explained, yoinasi tamasi, my dove, my perfect dove. Kadosh Baruch Hu says to Knesset Yisrael, my perfect dove, yoinasi. Zakta Balatanya, ki yoina, what's a yona, what's a dove? Hu lashain oina'a. It's a language of manipulation, it's a language of fraud. It's a language of fraudulency, it's a language of inauthenticity, it's a language of phoniness, it's a language of a lie, of lo lishma, of self-awareness, of bina, of stuckness. But Hashem loves that. Hashem loves that from us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves our counterfeit money. Asher al kain ba'al yichush la'avedasoi shehi me'una. A person should not be concerned whether there's some element of fraudulency inherent within their avodah, some element of imaginative, posturing, be'ezet ta'aruvos, in some mixed up way. Kiagam shehi me'una, in spite of the fact that it's fraudulent, in spite of the fact that it's counterfeit, in spite of the fact that it doesn't last. Afal pikein, nevertheless, he tmima, it's still perfect in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hagam shetzarach lebayar hargashaso, even though I still have to continue to do the work. Kol ze nitzrach lahayidiyah, all of this is necessary for me to come to the awareness and the knowledge, bichdei sheyeda kol echad ve'echad, so that each and every other person should know, benafsho, in their souls, in their minds, kifi erech avodaso, in accordance to the level of their service of God, lefi archo, in accordance to their relative existence, lahasir hata'arevis lefi erech sichlo, to undo all of the mixed up, muddled up nature of self-interest in accordance with my ability. And this is the work, and this is the battle. And sometimes in battle, they're going to be times where I'm victorious, and they're going to be times where I'm not victorious. As a result of this, should I not engage in battle klal? It's like Rabbeinu says, "Natzachti va'anatzeach." Either you're menatzeach or you're not menatzeach. If you're menatzeach, you won't have to be menatzeach again. If you're not menatzeach, then you'll have to be menatzeach again. If you tap in, then you're in. If you didn't tap in, then you'll have to do it again. So how can Rabbeinu say that I'll be victorious even though I was victorious? Ella, it's exactly what Reb Aaron Halevi is telling us in the name of the Balatanya, that just because I'm going to fall and lose the battle, should that mean that I don't stand up again? That I don't engage in the battle? If I give up because I've fallen down, then I'm going to be completely devoured by the other side. And this is in accordance with the relative positioning of one's heart. Each and every individual is different. Each and every individual is unique. Meaning to say, in accordance with my imaginative process of shedding my sense of self through the awareness of a higher power. In accordance to the gradations of a person, on one level, my avoda of getting rid of my self-interest will be considered a low avoda in relationship to someone higher than me, but it will be considered a high avoda in relationship to someone lower than me. It's relative, which is going to be the secret of what we're going to talk about in the shir. Kama Amar, as the pasuk says, Biyad Nevi'im Adama, the entire process of prophecy, the entire process of overcoming the limitations of self is one that is tied up with imagination of Yonasi Tamasi. The Ihunachis L'chol Chad Kifob Dimyon Delay, that it emerges in accordance with each and every person's imagination, the imagination in its inauthentic form. Imagination is still a felt thing. I'm still a zach. I'm still a person. I'm still stuck in bina. Yesh misha ohev. It's not bittul hayesh. I'm not in a place of actual geula of chachma, b'shleimus. Rak bitulo hu lefi dimyono. It's just an imagined bittul. Afal pikein, nevertheless, nachis kutchabrichu ba'atzmoi bebechinas hadimyon. Hakadosh Baruch Hu brings himself down, as mitzamsim himself into our dimyon, into our imaginations themselves, kamay hanaviyim, like the Nevi'im, except for Moshe Rabbeinu, who had real bittul ha'argasha be'etzem. And that's why his nevuah came from an aspaklaria ha'me'ira. Aval kol ha'naviyim, but every other navi haisa nevuasim ba'aspaklaria she'ena me'ira. The emergence of prophecy was through that clouded lens, kavyachol, of mixed up experience where I'm not there yet. But nevertheless, that doesn't mean I can't be there. Memela, when I'm there, and then I fall out, and then I have to get there again. But the fact that I fell out doesn't mean that I have to deny the value of my previous moment. I have to be machshir those things. My bittul is going to be in accordance with my imagination. And if this is true by the Nevi'im, then it's true by all of the Madregos Shalamatim and Nevi'im, that the imagination is the way. All the more so with every soul of Klal Yisrael, that each and every person, in accordance with their imaginations and their stumblings, who emes, it's true for them. It's their relative truth. As the Rashash says, Ki hakol toli be'erchei akinuyim bilvad, that Mashiach can come in this moment because it's independent of any other thing, any moment before or after, and then that moment ends, and then it's a different mitzias. Each moment is a different mitzias. It's a new 5 worlds. It's a new creation. It's a new beginning of creation, individual moments of revelation, and finalized redemption, each and every moment. Hayomim b'kolu teshmou. And as Rabbi Nachman says, it's not just the day, b'chol rega, every moment is an emergence of Mashiach Tzidkenu. And the fact that it falls away doesn't mean that it wasn't there. And the fact that the waves are going to crash doesn't mean, as Rav Hutner says, that the wave can't continue to push forward. Specifically because I fell, I have the ability to get up, because the only way to get up is to realize that each and every moment brings a new opportunity for redemption. A person has infinite worlds. Each and every moment is a world for an individual, as Rav Dessler points out so beautifully over and over. And we have to value them. And that's why it's not that we're not doing it for real. We're trying. And it's bezos yavo al Aaron. Bezos yavo Aaron el HaKodesh. Bezos yavo Aaron el HaKodesh. That the Kohen Gadol is nichnas specifically in the recognition that it's still my dimyon. It's the Urim V'Tumim that is rooted upon the heart of Klal Yisrael, the clarity that comes from the place of dimyon, the bina of the lave. That all of this, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us for this purpose. Specifically by dint to the fact that we're human beings, that there's an irreducible amount of imagination that will always prevent us from having any element of full grasp of anything whatsoever, because we're Bali Gvul and we're Mitzumtzum, and we can't enter into a place of Geula until you reveal Geula, Rabbeinu Shleilam. And even when you reveal Geula, there will always be a process of feeling like I'm outside of Geula, even though the outside of Geula then is going to be a geula in relationship to where we're at now, and it's always going to be Mailin b'kodesh ve'ein maridin, and it's going to be the secret of the movement towards a greater level of perfection that exists within the static perfection to reveal the capacity of the self to always be mevatel itself higher and higher, and that the bina is always at the service of the chachma, and that the imagination is always in the hopes of finding a real experience of it, but nevertheless valuing bina, not negating it, valuing the dimyon, valuing the falling out. Because that's where our Kadosh Baruch Hu wants us to find them. Because it's not enough to reveal Hashem through ayin. Hashem needs to be revealed through yesh, and that's our job, through our selfhood, through our concealment, through our falling, through our struggles, through all of it. And in accordance with thisness and this reality, each and every person is their own simsim, each and every person is their own kalim. But at the depth of the truth of the emes la'amiso, all of the dimyon is emes, ki dimyon hu gam ken koyche yisbarach, because all of our struggles, all of our imagination, all of our inability to experience the chachma b'pnim yuso, and the need to descend back into bina, all of that is also the koyche gvul of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hanochis b'bechinas dimyon d'chol echad ve'echad. This is the secret of Yonasi Tamasi. B'chibor hazeh, we're going to explain to you fundamentally what Chazal mean of that each and every moment is its own moment, and therefore I don't have to perfect every moment, but that doesn't mean I don't have the opportunity to perfect this moment right here, right now. That a person has to perpetually engage in deep strength to save themselves in this moment, to bring Mashiach in this moment, to enter into the cheder of the Vitebsker, to be okay. Daike b'yegiyas hanefesh im habasar. In order to awaken that hidden storehouse and flowing river of love that emerges from Gan Eden at every moment in the innermost point of Bina and Pnimius Halev, in accordance with the Hamshach of Tvuna V'das. Lo alav ligmor shiyeh b'shleimus. It's not my responsibility to make it perfect. Rak kol echad ve'echad lefi archo. Each and every person according to their ability. Going to pause here, and that's going to be the first part of this year. And tomorrow we're going to Be'ezras Hashem discuss what this means in terms of relating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the present moment in front of us. Be'ezras Hashem.